Recently, Apple had their WWDC event, their Worldwide Developers Conference. Every year, it starts off with a keynote presentation, usually an hour to 2 hours long, somewhere in there. I know it's been, I don't know, how long is it? I think it's been like 2 weeks since they had their event, so I'm a bit late in commenting on it. However, I do want to comment on it from a bit of a different perspective. So firstly, I just want to take a look at Apple Newsroom quickly. So I believe they have on here, I'm going to the Canadian version of it, they have some articles on here in relation to the WWDC event. I would say probably the biggest announcement from it was just the AI portion of it, or maybe even the AI plus Siri portion of it. So I just want to take a look at some of what's on here, but what I'm really interested in is the, as you already know, given what I typically make videos on, is the gaming stuff, because there was nothing to do with gaming during the event, and that's a bit unusual for Apple. I mean, gaming is never a big portion of their events, but there is usually some aspect of gaming that's included in their announcements, even if it's just an announcement to say, hey, we have a couple new games that are being ported onto macOS at some point, so get excited by that. None of that. Nothing at all. I believe they didn't even mention gaming once during the entire presentation, and again, this is the Worldwide Developers Conference. It is a bit strange. So I wanted to take a look at some of their articles and stuff to see if gaming was in here at all. So beginning with the first one here, Apple Intelligence brings powerful AI capabilities into everyday experiences. So we can see here the image was captured like that, but he's actually reframing the image using AI. I mean, a lot of this stuff, and I saw a lot of the comments after the event, and a lot of them were saying, like, this is still Apple trying to play catch up in the AI area. 100% true. I mean, Google has already been doing like this AI powered infill for a long time, so it's nothing new. This is no new technology. However, if you are someone like me who is heavily in the Apple ecosystem, I mean, I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, I have a Mac. The fact that, you know, maybe Android or other mobile operating systems, or maybe other manufacturers, whether it's Google or Samsung or whatever, yeah, maybe they had some of these features already, but we still can get excited about these features coming to Apple devices as well. Whether other people had it first or not doesn't really change anything. It's new for us, so that is exciting. But I will say, I mean, none of these features really make me excited per se. I mean, thinking about a photographer, maybe an amateur photographer or even a professional photographer who maybe does use an iPhone to potentially complement a larger rig or a more professional rig like a DSLR, I'm not sure how much they would get excited about this stuff. I mean, they are engaged when it comes to framing a shot and ensuring that they can capture an image under perfect conditions. You know, they bring all of this equipment with them. They are considering the framing and everything in real time. I'm not sure how often they would be thinking like, oh, okay, I can just take this photo now really quickly, and then I can get AI or something to remove this in the background. I'm not sure how often they do that. And I bring this up because these features, that tells me that these features, you know, they're not targeting photographers. They are targeting, you know, the average consumer, the average person. This was another neat thing that they showed off. So this is in the Apple Passwords app, which I do not use. I would like to use. I actually have a subscription with 1Password, and that's what I've been using for, I don't know, probably close to a decade now. So all of my passwords and everything are in there, which is great. When Apple came out with their Passwords app, I was excited by it because, I mean, I could, you know, save $50 a year with 1Password. I could cancel that subscription, but Apple Passwords couldn't do a lot of the stuff that 1Password could do. Now, that was years ago. Maybe they have upgraded it and it can store some of those things that it couldn't store previously. I'm not sure. I should probably give that a chance one day. But what they did here is they're showing how they have AI assist with increasing the security of your accounts. Like, they demoed basically Apple Intelligence accessing your account and then change the password itself to make it much, much more secure. And then it would ultimately save that password into the Passwords app. So it was doing everything behind the scenes for you. This is a perfect example of agentic AI. It's pretty neat. Now, I'm not sure. Would I really feel comfortable with something doing this? Not really. I would rather do it myself. But I mean, it's there for people who trust it. Part of the problem here with all of this AI stuff that they're introducing, it's great. I'm not going to complain about it per se, but because they were behind the curve, because they're doing this, I would say they're maybe 5 years behind the competition to some extent. I mean, I have a pro subscription in ChatGPT, and because I've been using ChatGPT essentially since the beginning, that's where everything is now. I mean, my professional work, my academic work, image generation, whenever I make a YouTube video, all of those projects, all of that life and memory and all of that is in ChatGPT. I can't just switch over now. It would be very difficult for me to switch over to something else. And that's what it means to get somebody within the ecosystem, right? Apple made a big mistake early on, thinking that when AI was, taking off, they were going to, take their time and figure out how to integrate it within their systems, which is fine. I mean, they're concerned with security and privacy. That's great. I'm not going to say that that's not a good thing. However, in so doing, they have basically fallen way behind the competition, and people who did want to try AI and started to use it more often, like myself, it's kind of too late, Apple. You're introducing this stuff, but now I'm so baked into ChatGPT, it's not easy for me to move over to something else. And if I'm already paying for ChatGPT Pro, why would I come into your Playground app to make an image? And I suspect that your image generation models probably aren't as good as ChatGPT's, Pro models. I'm not sure, but I suspect they're probably not as good. Let's go to the next one here. So this one here is, which one did I click on here? This one here, Apple previews new child safety. This was, I would say, the first 25% of their event, or maybe 20%, something like that, was dedicated to this child safety stuff. Nothing wrong with that. I think it is important for people who have children, for families. I think this is really good. You might ask yourself, why would Apple spend so much time on this child safety stuff? How big of the market is children for Apple? But it's not the children. It's the parents. If you can convince the parents that Apple is a safe place for children to start using technology at, an earlier age, then you can kind of get the children to use Apple devices. And if you get them using Apple devices, then they continue to use Apple devices as they grow up. You're getting them into the ecosystem early by targeting the parents through child safety features. It's a good idea from a marketing standpoint for Apple. Nothing wrong with that. But I mean, that's probably why I tuned out for the first 20% of the presentation, because of that. I don't have children, obviously. I have some cats, but I don't think I need to worry about cat safety features. Next one here, Apple introduces Siri AI. So I would say this was probably the biggest aspect of WWDC this year, was the focus on Siri now being powered by Apple Intelligence. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to say on here. I think we can, pretty much interpret what this means. Finally Siri is more capable. But I mean, I need to do this myself. I need to test it out myself. And unfortunately, I can't even use it on my iPhone, because my iPhone is a 13 mini, because Apple refuses to make any new Apple iPhone minis, which drives me nuts. And as a result, I'm probably not gonna, well, not probably, I won't. Because my iPhone, I will get the new operating system on the 13, but I will not have the AI features, unfortunately. So it is what it is, but I do have an M4 iPad Pro, so I'll be able to test some of these features out on that, as well as my M2 MacBook Air. So I am looking forward to a more powerful Siri. What I really want, though, I don't use Siri that much on any of my devices. I would say there's only two places that I ever use Siri. One is when I'm in the car driving, and that is using the Siri from my phone. So presumably, Siri's not going to be smarter, because Apple CarPlay is coming from my iPhone 13 mini. So I probably will not have the more powerful Siri in my car. And the other place that I use Siri quite a bit is with the HomePods in my house. And again, I suspect those HomePods, being several years old at this point, because Apple has yet to come out with new HomePods, with new chips. I suspect they also will not get the new Siri. So the two places that I use Siri, I won't even be able to use the new more powerful Siri, so that's a bit unfortunate. But I will test it nonetheless on my Mac and iPad. I am excited about that. I just wish the places where I actually use Siri were getting the upgrades, but they are not. In my opinion, this was probably the most important thing that Apple could announce, was a new dedicated Siri app. It's going directly after things like, ChatGPT, where you have this web page, you log into it, you have your ChatGPT account, you have all your conversations, your history and all that. And that is essentially where you work. Your life is there, your professional work is there, your academic work is there. All of that stuff is embedded within that one web app, or maybe an app on your device. And there's all your chats and history and all that. Apple needed that for Siri. Apple needed that in some way. Maybe it didn't have to be called Siri per se, but they needed some sort of generative AI application where all of this history about the individual and all the work that they've done could be embedded. That is what they've now done. However, looking at how they've laid this out with these sort of, I guess you can think of these as chats in ChatGPT, but this, it's very, I would say, modern. It's interesting. It's nice to look at, but this to me does not speak professional use cases. This speaks to me like it's just random chats that you've had in the moment. I don't know. It's not really the same thing. Again, they're targeting the average consumer here. That doesn't really get me excited because I use ChatGPT at a much, much higher level, I would say, when I'm doing it for work or for school. Looking at this app right here, that isn't what it's being built for. It's being built for today is 30 degrees outside. What should I wear? It's like those kind of questions, and that doesn't really get me very excited, frankly. I mean, I could just stick my head out the window. Apple unveils innovative features and intelligence experiences across services. Let's just jump into here quickly. Okay, find my wallet. Yeah, we saw this in the other one. As someone who uses their devices predominantly for professional use cases, there's nothing there that gets me too excited. Now, what we're going to turn over to is, so this is Apple's newsroom. This is more press release sort of thing, but we can actually change this to Apple developer news. And if we click on this here, this is where things get a bit more interesting. So if you are interested in gaming on Mac, that is what this is a good source for, the Apple developer news. And if we scroll down here, find out what's new for Apple developers, I think that is what we're going to click on. Let's jump into games. Okay. So Game Porting Toolkit 4 dramatically cuts the time, effort, etc., etc. So there is some stuff about Game Porting Toolkit 4. I'm not sure. I'm not following how often this is getting updated. I'm not sure. Is this new specifically for WWDC26? I'm not 100% sure. Or are they just talking about things that already existed? Metal 4 for games. Okay, games on the App Store. The good news here is that they are talking about games. That's what's important. So it's not like it's been completely thrown out the window, or it's something that they're no longer even thinking about. They are thinking about it. It's here. That's good. Okay, what is this here? If you build for Steam, it's now easier to prepare your game for the App Store and publish it on Apple platforms. With the Steam Asset Converter, you can easily convert the assets from your Steam depot to your managed background assets manifest, allowing you to leverage Apple hosting and additional development enhancement in Xcode 27. Available now. Okay, that's pretty interesting. If I'm reading this correctly as a lay person, it sounds like they're recognizing that a lot of people, or I don't know if a lot of people is the right term, but people who do develop games for the Mac platforms, they're probably going to only put them on Steam because, it's where most people download and play games. However, they're recognizing that and saying, okay, well, we're going to make it even easier for you to, if you're someone who develops games for the Mac and you put them predominantly on Steam, well, we're going to make it even easier for you to just also put it on the App Store because, why not? Why not have it on two storefronts? Even if the other storefront has a much smaller player base, if we can make it so easy that there's no reason not to do it, great. And that, it sounds like that's what they're doing here. which I like. That is great. Again, we wouldn't see them doing this unless gaming is important to them to some extent. Even though it didn't come up during the event or the keynote, it's not being, passed over. It is here. There is development going into it. That's good. Featured sales and offers on the Apple Games app. Oh God, the Apple Games app. I wish they never had done that. Doesn't make any sense when you got the App Store. But anyway, showcase special offers for your games to attract and engage players on the Apple Games app. For example, you can propose plans for an in-game offer or an offer that indicates your game is available at a discount for a limited time. Okay, well that is good. Why are they saying Apple Games app though? Like, I don't know, how many people actually navigate around the Apple Games app looking for games? I suspect not very many. Most people go to the App Store because, it offers a better experience navigating around and searching for games. That's in my opinion. They dropped the Apple Games app and they were like, okay, this is the place for anything to do with gaming on our operating systems, but they've done nothing with it. Since coming out with it, it looks exactly the same, and it still lacks a lot of the information and features that are available on the App Store. There's no reason to actually use the Games app, in my opinion. In fact, it just adds complexity. It just adds one more app that is duplicating information that's already in the App Store. To get started, you can use featuring nominations to propose your offer plans to an editorial team for consideration on the Games app. If the team chooses to feature your proposal, you'll be able to choose from 3 new badge types when configuring your in-app event. In-game offer now on sale or try before you buy. Okay, that's pretty cool. Coming this summer. Oh, okay, so it's only coming to the US. Other regions will be rolling out over time. Okay, that's good. One of the complaints that a lot of people have for gaming on, like to download games from the App Store, is that there is rarely any in-game offers or sales, especially when you compare it to Steam. Steam seems to be having sales like bloody every minute. There's a new sale in Steam. In the App Store, I think there are sales. It's not very visible. And there's definitely less sales, but they do happen from time to time, and it's not always visible. If you are someone who's trying to wait for a game to go on sale, the only option you have is basically to keep an eye on something like the Mac gaming subreddit and hope that somebody posts and says, hey, the Resident Evil games are now on sale 50% off for a limited time. That's like the best thing that you can do to try to keep an eye on it. And even that it's still a shot in the dark. So if Apple can make it more visible when games are on sale, I think that's a really good thing. Nice to see. I'm not in the US though, so that doesn't really help me at this moment. Okay, is there anything else in here about gaming? Was there anything under Mac OS? So these are the same, it looks like the same videos, they're just being catered now to Mac OS. Make your game great with touch. Dive deeper into the techniques you can use to create compelling touch experiences for your games. We'll share expert insights from indie to AAA game development, explore best practices for intuitive touch controls. I think this is a good idea that they're doing this because one of the big selling points, it's not much of a selling point. Why would a developer port their game or bring their game to Mac? In the back of everyone's mind, why do we do anything? Well, it's to make money at the end of the day. They need to make money. They're putting all this time into development. They want to get a payout at the end of the day. But why would you bring your games to Mac when the player base is so small? You wouldn't, and that is why we don't see very many games coming. However, where is the player base really large? On the mobile app store. If you can get your game on iOS or iPadOS, you're going to be getting a pretty big audience there potentially. But if your game is a AAA game, it's developed predominantly for mouse and keyboard or controllers, these games don't translate well onto touch-only devices. Apple is trying to convince them, hey, bring your games to our platforms. And here, we're going to show you how you can integrate touch controls to your game so that even though your game may have not been developed with touch in mind, we'll show you how easy it is to translate it over to a touch-only operating system or a touch-only device. And then you can sell your app on our mobile platforms as well. This is genius. If they can convince developers of really large games that they should bring their games to Apple devices, and in so doing, bring them to their touch-only devices, their mobile devices, where they have a very large player base, then in theory, this is a really good selling point to actually bring games onto Apple's platforms, in my opinion. So this is a very good idea if it works well. Your game port. Okay, so this is probably the most exciting one here. So agentic coding. So kickstart your game's journey to Apple platforms with new agentic skills in Game Porting Toolkit 4 that can dramatically accelerate the process of porting your game. Explore how to work alongside your AI coding assistant to adopt Metal 4, integrate Metal FX, and tune your game for Apple hardware.
The first step the agent asks for is to run a discovery. Let's look at the workflow in more detail. At a high level, the porting assistant workflow goes through 3 stages. The discover workflow skill.
It's interesting. It's almost like, if I think about something like ChatGPT, it's almost like a ChatGPT window right here, where it's, you're chatting with an AI chatbot, but it has coding built into it as well. You're almost doing 2 things in tandem, where you are coding to an extent, but you are also chatting with the chatbot, and that chatbot is assisting in those coding efforts. It's pretty interesting. I'm not a coder, so I get excited by this stuff, but I'm not sure how much of this was already existing within Apple's development system. I have no idea. This is what? This is a 30-minute video. So, it's quite a long time. But the funny thing is that, like I said, I've seen people use the Game Porting Toolkit online, just some average person, and it was like a couple clicks and it was done. The game is ported. But obviously there's probably a lot more to that. If you're actually going to go through the effort of porting a game and then putting it on the App Store, you need to go through all of this effort to make sure it's working and debugging and all the rest. So, if you are a development studio who wants to sell your game on the App Store, presumably it's not going to be as easy as clicking a button and just porting it over with the Game Porting Toolkit. You probably want to go through a lot of steps to make sure everything is working how you expect it should be working. So maybe that's what we're seeing here. Yes, it's more involved if you are actually going to go through the effort of getting paid by putting your game on the App Store. Now we see it's debugging. It looks wrong. The textures are all stretched and the lighting is wrong. Skill, debugging, rendering issue, successfully loaded. First, I'll capture a GPU trace. Interesting. So we're actually seeing the chatbot here run through a debugging process, and we're seeing it in real time. It's thinking.
It's leveraging GPU debug tool to inspect the capture. It can examine anything you normally check in Excel.
Yeah, this is pretty neat.
Bindings, constants.
You basically have this chatbot that you can chat with to overcome some of these challenges that you may have, and it looks like it has been purpose-built for game porting applications. So that's pretty neat. I think that's cool. I'd be interested to talk to a developer and ask them and like, I don't know, how does this work for you? Do you find it's helpful? Do you find it's interesting, but you would never do this? I don't know. But I think the biggest takeaway for someone like me, someone who just plays games for fun, doesn't do any coding or anything, doesn't really know exactly what I'm reading or looking at here. The point is that games are here. So gaming is still important. I think there was gaming mentioned under Metal. There was gaming mentioned under AI machine learning. There was gaming mentioned under the App Store. So games are here. They're thinking about it. Even though gaming wasn't mentioned during the WWDC keynote presentation, I wouldn't necessarily interpret that as like, okay, Apple has lost interest in gaming. They tried to introduce it ever since the M chips were shown off, and it seems like they've been, talking more and more about gaming with every event, and now all of a sudden WWDC 2026 happens and they didn't mention gaming. Is this the end? Have they given up on gaming? I don't think that's the case. It's just they wanted to focus the event on Apple Intelligence and on the Siri stuff, and I think that's fine. And seeing that gaming is being mentioned throughout on the Apple developer news room page here, I think that tells me that gaming is still very important. And some of the stuff that they're doing, like that AI agentic assisted game porting, that's really cool. That's cool to see, as well as the Steam stuff that we were reading about as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. See you later.